Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Before I get started with today's video, I want to talk a minute or two about yesterday's video. So I ask that you please be patient with me and give me a little leeway on that. Yesterday's video I did not think would be controversial, but it was apparently. And the comment section kind of blew up, and I've received some messages from people that did not like it and are now questioning me and my beliefs and everything. And it was kind of strange to me because that's not at all what the video was even about. So I would like to make some clarifications. Number one, apparently the channel that I referenced, a video that I referenced in my video, I had mentioned in the video that I'd recently discovered this channel, and I've only watched 2 or 3 videos of the channel. But I guess the guy also does some New Age type videos, or borderline New Age. I don't know. I wasn't aware of it, and the video that I watched and I referenced didn't have anything New Age in it. It was all based on science and on the grand solar minimum and how things are changing with our weather patterns and the different cycles of that. So I feel that maybe the guy does make the New Age kind of stuff, but it doesn't change the fact of what he was talking about was very scientific, and he referenced scientific data in his video, which you can go and look that up if you wish. And so I don't feel that just because the guy may have a different belief than my own doesn't mean that his information is incorrect. And again, I was not aware that he does New Age kind of stuff. And then also, because of that, and because I was talking about weather changes and how the earth goes through cycles and the sun goes through cycles. It's what the grand solar minimum is. We've all talked about of how the sun goes through an 11-year cycle, and then every so often it goes through a grand solar minimum, which can be every 200 to 400 years, that sort of thing. For some reason, talking about that had a lot of people question my own personal religion and faith. That because I believe in science, or because I'm saying that, according to the data out there, that over the next 3 to 4 years, we could be experiencing some major weather pattern changes on this planet that could very much disrupt agriculture, could disrupt people living in certain areas that might become too extreme for them to live in, could cause migrations. It's what appears to have happened in the past. In fact, there's data showing that one of the Chinese dynasties back in the past, back in, I think, 1,500 years ago or something like that, they believe that dynasty fell because of one of these weather cycles. And it caused so much disruption in their country that the dynasty the government actually collapsed. I find it strange that talking about that causes people to question my own faith, and I just want to make it clear that I do believe in the Bible. I wasn't trying to make any type of prophetic, prophecies, or saying that I don't know. I really am confused still of why people were taking that video of either me trying to be prophetic or mocking prophecies, or I don't really know. But I just want to make it clear that I am a Bible believer very fully, and I do believe that we probably are living in the end times. I mean, honestly, we don't know for certain, but it's very possible. It's very likely. I mean, the way things are happening, it's very possible. But I don't believe it is right for us to just sit on the sidelines and say, well, it's the end times. Let's just, sit around and do nothing and wait for it to happen. I believe that we are supposed to continue to be faithful and work until that time comes. So, moving on, if I've not made things clear, I will attempt to in the comments. If you still have questions about yesterday's video, I'm still puzzled as to why that video caused such a stir. But anyways, I guess I'm going to carry on some of that, the topic today. because I want to talk about food again. And we talk about food from time to time. We talk about grand solar minimum. We talk about how we need to be growing, raising, creating our own food systems. As a preparedness-minded person, as a homesteader, it's very important. And I want to point out some things because we've been talking about like the stock market, and the silver market and the digital currency and the potential of our dollar collapsing and a forced digital currency being pushed upon us, the Great Reset, all of that. We've been talking about that kind of stuff, but this is something that we need to be talking about, I believe, often and made aware of so that we can be taking it very seriously and planning and preparing, because I believe that there's a potential for it to be a very disruptive next few years. I'm going to point out some articles. Some of you may know this. I think Ice Age Farmer may have pointed out some of this. I'm not sure. And I think a couple of other YouTube channels have talked about it. But did you know that China is on a buying binge of buying food all over the world? I know that part of the reason is because this past year or so they've had a real rough go with their agriculture. They've had a lot of flooding, they've had swarms of locusts, they've had a lot of natural disasters that certainly disrupted their own food supply. And they are a rapidly growing nation. But if you do the math, and I haven't, but I have read others, in fact, the U.S. Ag Department, not the U.S. Ag Department, I apologize. It was a publication, and it did reference the U.S. Ag, talking about the amount of food that China has been purchasing, and it far exceeds what they would need to make up for of what they have lost on their own. And so I wanted to show you some of this stuff. Now, some of these articles are from a few months ago, so these numbers have actually increased. But we're talking like 170, 180% increase in purchase of wheat. If you look at corn in the 2019 to 2020 buying season, they purchased 60,000 tons of corn from us. And now they've purchased, in the past year, they've purchased almost 12 million tons of corn. They have, well, even the media talks about it as a buying binge. And it does make you kind of stop, and it should, I would think, make you stop and kind of question, why is China buying so much food? And it's not just from us. If you look at Brazil, which is one of the other major producers of food on this planet, they have purchased all of Brazil's available soybean this season, all of it. And they've also purchased massive amounts of corn from them. They are basically going around the world buying up all the available food. And I just don't believe, and it's not just me, that it's simply because they had a real bad year or two with their own crops. It almost makes you wonder that they are prepping, that they are stocking up on food because they foresee the potential of the next few years being pretty bad. Referencing the Bible, if you go back to the story of Joseph, the Joseph, the guy with the really bright colored, multicolored coat. If you remember that when he went to Egypt, and I won't go into the story because you probably have all heard it and know it very well, he was appointed second only to the Pharaoh. And his job was to collect as much food as possible and to put in the storehouses, because he had a vision of a great famine. Well, it wasn't his vision, but he interpreted a vision of a great famine. And so it makes me kind of wonder, is that what's going on with China? Not that they received any kind of vision, but do they believe that there is something in the works? Is it because of the Great Reset? Is it because of the pandemic? Oops, I said the bad word. The health crisis that's, all over the planet. What is it that would cause China to be buying such massive quantities of food all over the world. Maybe they just like stocking up on it. But I think it's definitely something that we should take note of. As far as you and I, we can't control what China does. We can't control what our own government does. But we can control what happens in our own lives as much as possible. And I think one of the things that all of you, and I know many of you, are already kind of the homesteader, small little farm, maybe you've not, but maybe you just have a garden. This needs to be the year, folks, for you to ramp up your growing and your food production on your home. If you have a piece of property like we do out here and are homesteading, great, and utilize it as much as possible. But even if you live in a city, in a suburban area, or even an apartment, while you may not be able to be fully self-sufficient in your food production, you can certainly be producing food. And I've told people that, say you do live in an apartment, maybe your goal is to eventually get out on the land. Start now gardening so that you've already learned those skills, because it really is a skill that you have to learn. You're not going to just go out for the first time and plant a garden and have great success. I've been planting for years, my whole life, and there are years that I don't have that much success. This past year was one of them. I just happened to plant at the wrong time, and we had some pretty harsh storms and completely destroyed the crops just as they were starting to really grow. So we kind of had to start all over, and it really threw things off. This is what happens. So I want to encourage you to take it very serious this year. That's something that we have been planning all winter long, of what we're going to do to expand our food production around here. We've been working on compost for the garden and expanding the garden plot. We've already purchased a lot of seeds, but we're still purchasing them. And I would suggest, if you don't have all the seeds you need to get on it. I personally have not seen signs of a seed shortage, but I haven't been buying a whole lot because we already have a whole lot on hand. But I have heard from a lot of people that there's a lot of places that are experiencing seed shortages. So you need to get on the ball, because you can't, if you don't have seeds, well, it's going to be really difficult to produce food. So get on the ball doing that. And anything else, the little containers to start your seedlings in, fertilizers or potting soils, or compost, anything like that. Start now getting as much of it ready as you can, because last year it certainly was a lot of shortages and just some disruption because of the health crisis. So this year it certainly could be also, because, well, there's a lot of lingering problems because of the health crisis. And more than just the health crisis now, we've got the economy that's doing an awful, and we've got a new administration that seems to be crazy about destroying the economy and jobs. So take it serious this year, folks. I'm getting a lot of glare on my camera. Let me move it. Take it serious with growing this year, and not just growing food. Learn to forage. We do a lot of foraging around here. Of course, it's not a large percentage of our food, but it does actually help it. We collect nuts for food. We collect sap from trees to make syrup. We collect mushrooms. We collect wild greens, and we also collect wild herbs for medicinal and for seasoning. You need to learn to do this kind of stuff, and you need to get on the ball. Do not be behind the curve on this. People were struggling last year. They're still struggling. The amount of people that statistically right now that are still struggling to buy food and put food on their table is astronomically high in this country. And with all the new policies coming out, it doesn't look like those things are going to get better anytime too soon. It doesn't mean that we're going to run out of food, but it could mean things start to tighten up a little bit more than they already are. It also could mean that our money doesn't buy as much as we want. And in fact, there are people believing that within the next year or so, we could see, official from the government rationing of foods. Um, and with this current administration, it would not surprise me. So, taking all this into account and looking at what China is doing, I think you and I need to be very serious about this and get out there. It's for most of us, although today it's quite nice and warm here. Most of us, it's still too cold to get out and plant. But it doesn't mean that you aren't getting ready for it. You can certainly start getting things prepared, getting garden plots prepared. If it's your first time reading up on it, watching videos, learning what you can about producing, and also stocking up on the things that you need: seeds, tools, um, fertilizers and compost and dirt and pots and all the kinds of stuff that you need for the whole process of food production. And I just want to say that you need to produce. This is my suggestion, produce as much as you possibly can starting this year, because you would be surprised how much food you need to produce to actually fully sustain your family. It takes a lot more than just a small garden plot. So if you have the available space, I would encourage you to produce as much as possible. And another thing on the side of looking at greenhouses or hoop houses, some type of structure to extend the growing season, because with the grand solar minimum and the other changes in weather patterns, it may get to the point, especially in some areas, that the growing seasons start to shorten enough that it can strongly impact how much food you can produce. And by having greenhouses and hoop houses, that can increase your growing season. So folks, you need to take it serious. This is the year. If you've not been big at food production in the past, and I know some of you are, and good for you, but this is the year you need to take it serious and get out there and plant and plant and plant as much as you can. If you end up having way too much food, you can preserve it, can it, you can give it to your neighbors, you can donate it to charity. So even if you have too much food, it shouldn't go to waste, and it's definitely good training, because I think there's a strong possibility in the next few years you're going to absolutely need that just to kind of get along and get your family along and survive. All right, folks. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.